Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us as we bring you a post-match analysis show of Spurs' friendly against Nice, which ends in a 1-1 draw, a friendly of all kinds, we're being honest with you. And also we're discussing Antonio Conte's contract situation and looking ahead to Brentford to come very, very soon now on Boxing Day. We're joined by three of our great returning regular guests on Last Word on Spurs. Are going to guide you through this next hour and a bit of all things Tottenham. Joining me, top right of my screen, he's delighted to be back. It's not going to be a 2-hour show, so he's even more happier. It can only be Jason McGovern. Jace?
Yeah, hurry up.
The cricket there in the background?
No cricket, but hurry up. The darts is on. I'm missing MVG.
He's not winding me up earlier. I thought he was behind on Spurs play. The wonderful Jason McGovern's back. Joining Jason, again, two of our returning regular guests. We've got the wonderful Mr. Cracknell back, seated in lands. And Rossi's in the house. Cracks, how are you, bud?
Hurry up, Rick. The Canarian Wrestling's on.
For God's sake. What am I dealing with tonight? What am I dealing with here? Jesus Christ.
Evening, Rick. Evening, Frank, Jason, and everybody
hello,
watching.
Cracks.
And hello. Nice to be back. Lovely gathering over at Beavertown for the Christmas show. Rick, wasn't so sure about that snow because it took me about 48 hours to get home. I was literally sitting on the plane when it got cancelled. I mean, that was that. So, but home I got, and just the 28 degrees today. Look, I've even got my legs out. Look, got my shorts on. Do you know how hard that is for a man of my fatness and age to get my leg up that high? Honestly.
Well, if this show doesn't do anything, there you go. Is that the punchline? Is that where we end it? We call it quits from there?
Carry on.
I tell you, where do you go from there? Join it. What is Jason showing? I don't know what Jason is showing me now. I don't want to know what he's showing me. Don't drop that camera any further. Jason's showing his legs. Where is his show going?
Shorts, mate, in this weather. Shorts. Once it gets to 10 degrees, it's shorts weather, mate. I tell you.
I know a man bringing us back down to earth firmly on track. It's been a while since he's been on Last One on Spurs. Love to have him back on during this Christmas break. We've got the wonderful Frankie Majors in the house. The Major's here. Frankie, how you been, bud? Looking forward to Spurs being back in your life?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Depending on the state of the squad for the Brentford game. But no, I've had a bit of a break from the show. I've actually really enjoyed the World Cup. I think it came at the right time for us as a squad because there were games like Newcastle and Liverpool, games I felt we didn't deserve to lose, and injuries and so on. So I felt the break helped us. But now I'm looking at the Brentford game and who's available and who's not possibly, and I'm not sure. So, yeah, we'll get into that, obviously. But, yeah, it's good to be back. And I'm looking forward to a return of the Premier League because as great as the World Cup is and all the other football you watch, you cannot beat Premier League football. You can't. So I'm looking forward to it.
And actually, we never welcome you to the show, Rick, but welcome back. Have you enjoyed the break since the Nottingham Forest Cup tie, and are you over it yet?
No, we should have been playing tonight in a cup tie. And, I think at one point when I saw Leeds getting murdered 4-1 at home by Monaco, I thought the 1-1 draw against Nice is quite a respectable result. But again, look, I think tonight, as we know, it's a bit of a workout for the boys. We'll get your thoughts on it for sure. But as ever, we are proud to be sponsored by the Beavertown Corner Pin. Now, we were down there for our Christmas show. They've got, of course, they are bang opposite our South Stand. There's still time to get a few festive drinks in the build-up to Christmas. They've got the whole lineup of Beavertown Brewery beers. Perfect for the post-Christmas shopping in the mega store for any of you pushing it to the last minute. We know Macca loves the Laser Crush. And just on Macca, disappointed that he can't be with us tonight. Macca, illness has permitted him from this one. Wishing you a very speedy recovery from us all here, bud. And like I say, get well soon. We need you for Boxing Day. No pressure.
He just sent me a message that he is watching the darts. He said, stuff the pod. MVG's on. I'll talk to you later. That's what he says.
That's what annual leave gets you these days, Jace. You can get your darts. That's why I booked you in for a couple of them.
He's thrown a sickie in, Rick. He's thrown a sickie in to watch the darts. Reprimand him. Put him on a verbal warning at least, Rick.
Who does our head of HR? Is it Anthony Costa? Let's bring Ant in. Let's send Ant down there a word with him. Sure, Ant does the head of HR these days when he's not kicking, bless him. We'll send that to Ant tomorrow morning and see what he can do. But, boys, let's touch upon tonight's friendly, what we've just witnessed. Spurs 1, Nice 1. Frank, let's actually start with you. Look, good outing for Tottenham. Probably more of an exercise than really anything you can really take from that game. Matt Doherty, for him, is his fourth goal in 3 friendlies in that first half. cancelled out by Mendy, who scored within 90 seconds of the restart. Anything you can say from that, Frankie, overall, that game itself?
It was what it was. It was a friendly. There were a couple of performances that were encouraging. Basuma looked comfortable. Doherty in the first half, he was a good outlet for us. Obviously scored again. But it was a friendly in every way, shape or form. And I mean, it was interesting to see Ross Barkley and Nicolas Pepe play as well. Obviously, ex-Chelsea. Or is Barkley still at Chelsea? Is he there? Is he there on loan?
No, he's left now.
Is it
Permanently,
Mason?
I think.
I
Permanent.
think it was a transfer. I think.
Okay. Well, it was just interesting to see, and obviously Kasper Schmeichel returned, but you can't take too much from that. The fact that obviously we had so many players missing, and also it's a friendly, so the players are obviously not going to overexert themselves. We didn't have a proper striker, as Jason was saying off air. We didn't have a target to play off. So I wouldn't read too much into that. It's encouraging that players are getting minutes and fitness and a bit more of momentum building up to the Brentford game. But we were missing too many key players to read into that for me. I am a bit surprised that Davinson Sanchez was made captain over Højbjerg, and even someone like Fraser Forster, who's a senior player, you know.
That's interesting point. Yeah,
a little bit surprising, but someone's just commented on Brian Hill, full of endeavour, no real quality for me. Still looks a little bit lightweight for the Premier League and English football. Even though we were playing Nice, he just seems,
I think you said it, Frank. He needs an English loan, doesn't he? Probably.
Yeah,
he needs a loan in the Premier League.
Needs to toughen up a bit. But I watched it. It was what it was. The second half was a bit drab, but bring on Brentford away. That's where the real test is for us. So you can't read too much into these friendlies, Rick.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Brentford is going to be the acid test. That's where we're going to really see what the Spurs side are like. Obviously, having to recover from the World Cup, a lot of players mentally as well as physically. Cracks coming over to you. Look, I mean, as I said there to Frank, more of a good workout than anything else. I mean, there's valuable minutes in there for some of the first teamers, the likes of Doherty. And important probably for some of the World Cup players. You look at the likes of Son, Højbjerg, Dyer Davies, just to get a few minutes under their belts. I mean, Cracks, can you really read anything into a game like that when there's so many changes made throughout?
I think the most interesting thing, Rick, was how close to the bench Daniel Levy and the board was sitting this evening, rather than up in their godlike seats.
I thought at one point, Cracks, they'll make up the subs.
Well, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'd actually like getting them a little bit lower and a little bit lower. Come Saturday, we might have Donna Cullen on the bench and coming on as right back from about 70 minutes to the last 20 minutes run out. We seem to be so short. So no, you can't really take anything from that. It gave some kids a bit of a run out, didn't they, as well, to see what they were like and just give them a bit of a feel of the stadium and a crowd. So that's all good when you do that. Doherty looked fantastic this evening. He looks like he's getting back to the player that we brought in. So the old Irish Cafu there. Hill again, some lovely touches. You know how much I love Brian Hill, but oh man, he's just like skins of rice puddings, isn't he? He just couldn't knock one off. He just like he's got to go.
That's got to be up there. Cracks, that's got to be up there for you. Skins of rice puddings.
He couldn't take a skin off
a
rice
skin
pudding.
Of a rice pudding, though, don't you, Cracks?
He's just like, honestly, he needs to go up north, doesn't he? He needs a right horrible loan somewhere, like right in the trenches. Just send him out to Grimsby or Blackburn,
Blackburn,
or Bolton or somewhere. Just send him somewhere and just, I don't know. I like him. A loan would really. I don't want to see him go. That's the thing. I think there's a real prospect in there, but again, he's just so lightweight, isn't he? But you're welcome, Fiona, for that image. It's it was nice to see Mundell. Like, he came on, didn't he? There was a few of them that came on and got a little run out. But as you say, Saturday is what it's all about. It was interesting today to hear Pep saying that the players coming back from the World Cup actually look sharper than those players that have ticked over, because they've been getting those mean minutes under their belt. So Danny Murphy, the same today, talking on Talk Sport said you're probably better off with a team full of players that have actually been to the World Cup because they've been at full throttle. So it is going to be a very, very interesting restart. You know, everybody's saying it's halfway. It's not. It's only a third in. There's 2/3 to go. So yeah, it could be a funny old weekend of results just as people feel their way back in. It's a unique season.
Yeah.
So so let's see where it takes us. But this evening, yeah, a good run out, but that was it. It was a training session and a chance to flog a few cups of Bovril and take a tenner off of one stand full of people, wasn't it? Really.
Well, yeah, put it like that. I mean, again, you can tell I'm not over it. It should have been, James, come over to you, the Carabao Cup night. It isn't the Carabao Cup night. King Arnold says, do these games actually teach us anything? I think, again, from a game like that, very difficult to really take much from it because it felt so much, Jace, like a very friendly-ish game. It wasn't at the intensity of a Premier League contest. It looked like it was set up to get some minutes for the available senior players and to almost reacquaint people with the actual system of play. Is that how you saw it, Jace, overall?
Yeah, I think so. But, you know, with great respect, that's all they're going to be, isn't it? You're not going to get people at full throttle. It's difficult in the pretty much, well, a 9,000 stadium, all at one end. Difficult to get that real intensity of a Premier League game, the pace of a Premier League game. Few people, I mean, you know, even those first team players, if you like, players like Japhet Tanganga, he's barely kicked a ball all season anyway, has he? So, you know, he's another one that, okay, he's a first team player, but hasn't really shown anything this year. Davinson Sanchez, bits and pieces. So, you know, it's very, very difficult without a proper striker to work around the ball. I feel a little bit for Harvey White having to do that role because I'd have liked to have seen Harvey White in his genuine role, but he's done something for the team and you know, he may get a few brownie points from Conte. I thought Papa Sarr in the second half looked some nice touches of the ball and looked like he could bring something to the squad in the not too distant future, but very, very difficult. But, you know, Schmeichel made more. Fraser Forster didn't have a great deal to do, did he? And Schmeichel made 3 or 4 saves. So perhaps we should have just nicked it. But, you know, Kulu, 1 or 2 nice touches. The one big thing, you know, you could definitely see was Matt Doherty is a better wing back than Emerson Royal. Yeah. Quite simply, you know, the threats all came from Matt Doherty as they have done through the Motherwell and the Peterborough game. So, you know, I would sincerely hope he'll start on one side, and then it's a choice between whether you go Sessegnon at Brentford, who's had no minutes, or you go with Emerson Royal and you play Doherty one side. So we'll see what it is, but difficult to really know what type of team we'll have at Brentford.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, again, we're dealing with a situation where this is, you know, I mean, how can I put this in the most politest way? You know, this situation that we find ourselves in is not the usual where you've got players that are coming back from a mid-season World Cup. And therefore, to try and manage that situation and bed in players and then put them back in, it can be tricky, Jace, right?
Yeah, I mean, just the one thing, it's a bit of a worry for us, but every single team in the Premier League is in the same position, all right? Not all of our players away from the World Cup, but your Man Cities, the Chelseas, the Man Uniteds, they've all had players away at the World Cup as well. So they're equally as, you know, as unprepared for the restart as us. And then if you look at even teams like Forest and Brentfords and such that didn't have so many away, you know, they haven't played any competitive football either. So it's not an ideal scenario for anyone. And I think all 20 teams are going into a bit of the unknown on Boxing Day and those couple of games over a few days after that.
Yeah, I mean,
I think sorry, just to interject there.
Brentford had...
Go on,
Frank. Sorry, I was only going to say Brentford had 6 players go. Six Brentford have had go.
But majority of them were with Denmark, weren't they?
Yeah.
Not
all of them, I think.
Not turn the groups. So it's different. I just think, going back to what you've said, Rick, about the League Cup, and you'd prefer us to be playing Blackburn away tonight. Forest actually have gone through. It would have been tough for us to actually put a team out with a goal threat because obviously Kulusevski plays, but Richarlison doesn't play, Kane doesn't play, Son's ill. So, you know, it would have been so difficult. Obviously, I'd prefer to be in it and have a chance to go through. And I understand exactly what you're saying, but the timing of it just went against us. And yeah, it's tough, Rick. You know.
Yeah. You look
Actually,
at Newcastle, though.
technically-
Newcastle are buoyant now going through last night. They're on a really good run. They're an opportunity to win a cup. Again, I have to let it go, and I will let it go. It's the last time I'm going to mention it now this season.
Just
I will let it
technically,
go.
Rick,
Jason.
Rick, it wouldn't have been Blackburn away. It would have been Lincoln at home because the draw was done alphabetically.
It's
done alphabetically.
How did they get on? Anyone know how they got on tonight?
Southampton would have been a ball higher, and Tottenham would have taken Southampton's ball or something, and we'd have had Lincoln or something like that. We'd have been at home to Lincoln.
Yeah,
that would have been last night. That would have been last night then.
Yeah,
would have been last night. Yeah. We are going to forget the Carabao Cup, or I am going to forget the Carabao Cup for my own mental sanity. Cracks, let's bring you in. I mean, one player I think Jace picked up on there was Pape Matar. I think, he really impressed in that second half, to be fair. Again, you have to take into account the opponent we're facing. But look, he made a big impression during the World Cup for Senegal. He, I think, came on in the second half against England, got some decent minutes. For someone like him, Cracks, is that an opportunity tonight that he's taken? Does it mean anything when you look at the grand scheme of things in terms of January, or do you think he is going to need a loan in the second half of the season when we've got all the midfielders back available once the resumption of the Premier League begins? What do you think?
I suppose it depends how much he impresses around the training ground, doesn't he? And what sort of Conte and the team seen from him. And Conte will no doubt take some counsel on him. And, the coaches at work closely with him on the training pitch. I would think Conte sort of oversees things more, and then will just speak to the relevant coaches. And he looks a real prospect, doesn't he? He's a great kid, and we saw tonight he's really good, but like some nice touches and that. But it might be another one that needs to go out on loan and get some more hard yards under his belt. But this is something Conte's been telling us. We're another 4 or 5 windows away from getting the squad where he would like it to be. So, it's patience again, isn't it? Hill, Papa Sarr, there's a few of them now, but some may flourish and come through quicker than others. Some might have to go on loan, and some may just fall by the wayside. That's just the way it is. So injuries and that, might get a little bit lucky, and 1 or 2 injuries, and he comes in and grabs his chance. You really don't know. Harry Kane was the same. It was only a couple of injuries that got him into the side, and bang, he was away and off and running. So a lot of that's crystal ball stuff, isn't it, Rick? Really, you Absolutely. Just don't know what the future offers you. So, but he looks a prospect. So it's a rosy future for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I know many alluding to the fact there are bigger topics on the horizon at the moment with regards to Spurs in terms of Antonio Conte's contract situation, which we are going to cover. But for the sake of those that are just keen to know how this friendly panned out tonight, we are just going to share the team on the screen. Now, for Jason's sake, I have to say, Jace, our back office has been working overtime now because we haven't, unfortunately, got a picture for the dear old Harvey White. So you have to forgive us, Jace, when this goes up, because we are going to come up to you, Jace, on this team. So Harvey White, currently, we're working on an image for Harvey White. So please forgive the background team last for the Spurs and that,
Jace. Rick, is Harvey White in witness protection? Harvey White, witness protection. He's gone stool pigeon. Look,
he's now called Harvey Black by the look of it. Look.
So for Harvey's own sake, like I say, it's one of those things where we are working on the image for Harvey. We were thrown by Conte's team lineup tonight. So that team, as you can see there, was fairly strong for Conte, given the fact that, of course, players coming back from the World Cup, and you look at the fact that, we welcomed back to this side in terms of the squad, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Heung-min Son, Fraser Forster starting in goal. Obviously missed out on the past couple of games due to a minor knock. We had Davinson Sanchez, Clement Longley continuing in the back three, and the duo were joined by Japhet Tanganga in defence once again with the returning Eric Dyer. Now, we're basing this, of course, on Spurs' previous couple of friendlies where they beat Motherwell and Peterborough, along with beating, I think they're under 20. It was actually Peterborough's under 21s in a behind closed door friendly. Jed Spence, not part of this match day squad. It meant Emerson Royale came into the 11. Matt Doherty continued on that left wing back spot once again, with Ryan Sessegnon, who was actually named on the bench for this one due to his recent injury issue. Højbjerg returning to that centre of midfield alongside Yves Bissouma. And as we know, Bentancur still remains out after sustaining that abductor muscle injury to his right leg at the World Cup. But Conte has indicated that hopefully he should be back in contention for Aston Villa on New Year's Day. Son, as we mentioned, named on the bench. So we had that front three of Dejan Kulusevski, Harvey White, and Brian Hill continuing as they have done in recent pre-season friendlies. Harry Kane, just to add, of course, not part of the matchday squad, but we do understand Kane came back to training this week, but was given an extra rest tonight after starting every one of England's World Cup campaign games. So Tottenham's team read Forster, Tanganga, Sanchez, Longley, Emerson, Højbjerg, Basuma, Doherty, Kulusevski, White, Bryan, with a bench of Austin, Whiteman, Pakowski, Dyer, Davis, Sayers, Cisse, Sarr, Sessegnon, John, Lancashire, Son, Devine, Mundell, Santiago. And when I read that team out, it kind of reinforces the point Frank said there that, you know, Spurs would be at the bare bones tonight if they were in that Carabao Cup. But Jace, overall, is that a team you were roughly expecting, or was it always going to be a lottery as to who was going to play this friendly, in your opinion? Have we got Jace? I think Jace has gone on to the Witness Protection Act. Is this the team you're roughly expecting, Jace?
You're breaking up.
I'm break. Cracks, can you hear me? Can Frank hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. I'm 2,000 miles away. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yep. Sorry, mate. I got you now.
That's fine.
Was that the team I was expecting? Yeah, it would have been nice to have seen Jed Spence continue, but obviously the illness, virus, or whatever has accounted for that. And otherwise, that's pretty much all that was available. Højbjerg back. We knew Sonny was back, but only just for a few days, and Eric Dyer for a few days. So, you know, I think, in fairness, Brentford's 6 days away. So I'm sure Sonny and Eric Dyers and that will be competing for a starting spot for that Brentford game. I'd be astonished if that team is reminiscent of the one that plays at Brentford. I think we'll see Højbjerg play or be available for 90 minutes of that game. I'd be stunned actually if Harvey White is in that side. And like I say, the question mark will be whether he plumps for Sessegnon for the balance on the left, or he goes for Doherty left, Royal right. But I'm sure Eric Dyer will be in the centre of that defence, and Ben Davies is available. So there's a choice there where you could even play Longley in the middle and Eric Dyer on the right side of it if we didn't want to go with Sanchez and Tanganga. So there will be more options available for Boxing Day for sure.
Yeah. But
we definitely need, hopefully Harry is back to at least start the game or at least be on the bench. But Sonny, you do need a goal threat up there. And Sonny, having said that, Sonny's only scored in 2 games this season, but there's more of a threat with Sonny than obviously Harvey White playing in that role.
Yeah, I mean, I think many alluding to, I think, Frank, you mentioned this, that we have got a bit of a crisis at the moment in the side where, sadly, no Jed Spence at the moment. Conte actually mentioned him and Skip had been ill. And I think, his words were, I have to be honest, we have some problems because Son in the last 2 days, he didn't train due to having a fever. It's now the same for Skippy and Spence. Many players have had a bit of a stomach problem. Feels like lasagna gate all again, Frank. But it is a concern when you've got this virus in the camp, given already how much we are suffering from the fact players are coming back late from the World Cup. And you do concern yourself about what that team's going to look like against Brentford, because you do feel they're going to be bang up for it, Frank, which we're going to obviously come on to a bit later.
I mean, didn't our players that played as well, and I understand what Crackers was saying about the momentum of those players playing at a high level and not having this break. Didn't we play the second most minutes, our players collectively in the Premier League during the World Cup? I mean, that, unfortunately, that will play a part in March, not necessarily now, but when we come to the tail end of the season, muscle injuries, it's just unfortunate. That will happen because of the fixture congestion, but it's just our club, Rick. These things only happen to Spurs. You look at Arsenal, I know Jesus is missing, for instance, but everyone else, it's a big loss, but everyone else is available. Fine that, they didn't really play too many minutes at the World Cup. You look at other clubs around us, obviously City have had Haaland, rested, he didn't go. De Bruyne went out in the group phase. The 2 biggest and most key players are fresh and ready to go. You look at Liverpool as well. Salah's had a nice rest. Again, only at this club, even now, we're looking at an outbreak. We know Spence probably would have started tonight. He's been playing the other games, which we're all keen to see him play, and that would have been a good test for him tonight, albeit in a friendly. But this club, Rick, we can't have nice things. We can't come back from this World Cup break and have a little bit of fortune. Brentford away is a tough game. Ivan Toney's probably about to get a 5 or 10 game suspension, but no doubt he'll play on Boxing Day and probably score 1 or 2 goals. It's just the way things are. But in all seriousness, we are so unlucky. We are. It's ridiculous. And I'm hoping that Kane plays. It's 5 days away, Boxing Day. You know, he's been back. He actually had a really good tournament for England, barring the world. Hopefully the penalty doesn't affect him because his actual form was brilliant.
Yeah.
But then we've got Richarlison out for 6 weeks or so, 4 to 6 weeks. Romero, when will Romero realistically be back? Will he be back on New Year's Day? I don't think so.
He's back New Year's Day, Frank, but it's just 2024. That's the only problem.
2024. But I mean, he's on open tour buses, which I don't blame him. Buenos Aires, smoking cigars and drinking beer at the moment. You know,
we couldn't get him to play when there wasn't an international game. Now we got no chance. He just won the World Cup. So
the problem, and his confidence will be so high at the moment. So we need him back.
He had a wonderful tournament as well, Romero. That final, he was incredible. I mean, I have to say, he was outstanding. Formidable.
Playing against Kylian Mbappe and Griezmann.
Yeah,
and he's got, you know, for large parts of the game, he managed that well. And it was only Otamendi, in my opinion, that let him down, and obviously let France back into the game. But for me, proved his credentials. I mean, he hasn't done it like the guy down the road. What has he played? 14 games, best defender in the world, Saliba. 4th or 5th choice for France. Can't get a kick. The guy can't get a kick. Our guy is the main man, probably the best centre back at the World Cup. So that's a conversation for another day. But no, look into this Brentford game. I'm not confident. I hope that Villa the team probably take more of a shape than we like to see. Lloris, Bentancur will be back. Hopefully, Son will be ready. And
Emi Martinez will be back for Villa, but Romero won't.
Well, the irony behind that, who knows? But apparently, Romero's father said, Spurs wanted him back within the next 72 hours. Did you see that earlier?
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
My son hasn't been given too much time to celebrate because they want him back within the next 72 hours. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there because it's a long travel, a long flight as well from Argentina. So, no, the squad's not in great shape. And it's a little bit of a concern because we can't really afford to drop points away at Brentford. And it's a tough place to go.
Yeah, before we come on to Brentford, one player tonight that should hopefully be invigorated by the way he's taken his goals really well. Coming over to you, Cracks, if we can, is Matt Doherty. Now, I mean, like I say, 3rd successive game for him. He's been on the score sheet. I think 3 goals in 4 friendlies now. Sorry, 4 goals in 3 friendlies. Let me put that correctly with Kulusevski getting the assist for him tonight. Will he be looking at tonight, Cracks, and just think that's a really good opportunity for him now that he's taken hold of? When you think at the moment that no one's nailed down that right wing back spot. And to be fair, I think back in the last season, he did really claim that shirt. He really, really did before that horrendous challenge by Matty Cash.
Yeah,
do you think he will nail that spot in your opinion, or do you think it's still up for grabs?
He looks like he's taken it for me, Rick. What more can he do? He looked bright again tonight, and you know he's banged some goals in. Took that goal beautifully this evening as well. Really, really placed that power, precision, and he looks like he's sort of back to that horror challenge. And why not? Because who else? But even if he had a little bit of competition, he looks good enough. He does really look good enough. He's settled now. Looks like he struggled a little bit when he come to Spurs. It was a big jump up for him. But yeah, I like him. I do really like him. And that right wing back spot could well be his. So, and he's doing everything he can to make it his. So why not Doherty? Brentford. He's got a little bit of everything about him. So yeah, definitely for me. I like the lad. There's a player in now, and as I said, the slow start, then the injury, but he's back. So you're good enough. You play. If you're the main man, there's nobody else around you, and you're performing the best, you should be playing. It's simple as that. So hopefully we'll see him Boxing Day, and he continues where he's left off in these friendlies.
Yeah, before we address the elephant in the room, Jake, which of course is Antonio Conte's contract, just want to ask you about Kulusevski. Seeing him again up close and personal, another decent amount of minutes under his belt tonight. What do you think of his performance overall, Jace? Again, difficult to judge based on the opposition, or happy with what you saw out there?
Yeah, I didn't think he made our goal, didn't he? And there was plenty of bright moments, but it wasn't a full-on 90 minutes of Kulusevski. I thought he was out. He was exceptional in I think the one against Motherwell, but that's Motherwell. You know, it's difficult to judge, but you know, we know the quality he's got. We know the decision making he's got. We know that he sees. You know, he just gets a feel of the team, and particularly I think with Son and with Kane backing the side alongside him rather than Harvey White and Brian Hill, that will bring that little bit more out from Kulusevski as well. So he's such a big player for us. I mean, there's that astonishing stat that since signing, we've only lost 2 Premier League games in which he started.
It's incredible. Yeah, that is mad.
And that says a lot.
Son needs him, Jace. Son needs him. Son will be a better player, and he's obviously had a difficult season with Kulu in the top team. You'll see a different Son.
Yeah,
I think, you know, even in a kind of way, even if you just went with those 2 up top at Brentford, and you went, you know, 3-5-2 or something, I think Son and Kulu alone at Brentford would give you a lot more goal threat than we've seen in those friendly games.
Yeah, coming over to you, Frank, if I can. You just mentioned in there, Son. He got a really rapturous ovation when he came on from, what was it, the 8,000 that were in there. I think, quote, just over 9,000 in there this evening. What do you make of Sonny for you tonight, Frank? Again, it's a friendly. You probably can't pay a huge amount of attention to the performance in general, but concerned for the form that he showed throughout the World Cup and obviously
this
the World
season.
Cup.
I'm concerned. I can't put my finger in it. I think Kulusevski missing someone who's an assist king, a provider, plays the right passes probably 9 times out of 10. You'll always miss a player like that as a goal scorer and a goal threat. But he is a concern. You know, his level was so high last season, and I'm not sure what it is, but something isn't quite right. And I think we all know that. And we need him fit and firing. You know, we know the ability and the capabilities that he's got to go and score and go on a run. But yeah, it's a huge concern because Tottenham, who are going to be challenging and trying to get in the top 4 and you know, closing the gap on, you know, Arsenal or wherever it may be that's above us, City, you need a fit and firing Son. You really do. And it's just a shame this season we haven't had an extended spell with all 4 of those, Kulusevski, Son, Richarlison and Kane, all fit. When Richarlison played, he was playing out of position. We could clearly see at the World Cup, and when we watched him, he's not a right-sided attacker.
No,
it's not his position.
No.
It's the last of the 3 that he should play. If anything, we need another on that side to replace Lucas and be a sort of a Kulusevski replacement backup or competition, whatever you want to call it. But to not have those 4 all fit for a run of 5 or 10 games is so unfortunate. And again, I don't want to sound like I feel sorry for us, but I do. Out of all of the other 5 of the big 6, they haven't had those injury issues. They haven't. And if you take Martinelli, Saka, and Jesus out of that Arsenal side, you're telling me they're not going to struggle. Liverpool as well. You take Salah, you take Firmino, Darwin Núñez. Look at what's happened since Luis has been missing from their side. And again, he's going to be out even, I think, until March now. Huge loss. So we have to take the context of the season at the moment. We have been unfortunate with injuries. So if we can just get everyone back in the beginning of January, whether it's 3 or 4 weeks' time, and have them all fit until May, I think you'll see a completely different Tottenham team.
Just to give you a
Sonny as well. Just the other thing on Sonny, watching him in the World Cup, I thought he looks like the Tottenham Sonny of this season. Didn't really dominate for career. Looked patchy. I don't know if that.
He got one decent assist, didn't he? Got one decent assist. And
actually, the decent assist was when he ran up the blind alley and almost didn't know what to do with it. In fair, it wasn't one that he really created. And you know, he just looks a little bit tentative with that mask as well. I think that's not helping him. But Frank says we really need him to get back to those levels, not even live last season, of his whole, more or less his whole career for Tottenham, because first half of the season, to think we've played 15 Premier League games and he's actually only scored in 1 game, that's ridiculous for Sonny.
Just to give
to add to that, if he had scored in even 7 or 8 of them games, you look at the difference in our points tally, what that potentially could be. Yeah. It's all ifs, buts and maybes, but it's true. You know, when a key player like that goes off the boil or for whatever reason, goes through like a barren spell, it's going to affect your team. And Kane said it, didn't he? Kane said, I think at the back end of last season or the beginning of this season, this club, this squad needs Son at his best to compete and be competitive.
Just to give you a right reply, Frank, you just said about Richarlison there that, you know, you argued that we saw his best position at the World Cup. We haven't been playing him there really when he's had the opportunity to play in a Spurs shirt. We have forced him out wide. Is there a way, Frank, you could accommodate Richarlison in that central role, which would probably mean Harry dropping deeper? Or is that just a rotation
Well, they could play in a 2, in a 3-5-2, but I don't mind him from the left. I think he's far better from the left than from the right, which we saw against Wolves when he came on. And you know, the Fulham game he done okay. I know he was on the right in the Fulham game, but he's not a right-sided player. When he cuts in, his left foot's not the greatest. And I think now in games where perhaps Kane, I know Kane's very important, and Conte would play him in every game if he could. But I think we now need to understand that if Kane can't play or needs a rest, because he can't play every single game in a season.
No, it's impossible.
We've got a top number 9 there who can come in and fill that role and also play from the left. But I hope Conte sees that now and understands that. You know, you saw him playing with, let's be completely honest, better players in that Brazil team. They've got better players than what we've got. You could see the damage he could do if you provide him with good service and you know, play around him. He'll get you goals, and he'll score some great goals as well.
No, I agree, absolutely. What we are going to do before we just go off and finish off on Nice, Crack, just want to ask you about the goal we conceded. We conceded within, I think, 90 seconds, a minute of the restart. How infuriating would that be for Conte, where would have given his half-time instruction? We made a couple of changes as well. I think, a couple of changes. Pape Matar replaced Pierre Højbjerg at half-time, who, to be fair to him, as always, puts himself about, kept the ball ticking over. But disappointing, Cracks, you know, straight away to concede like that. I know it's only a friendly. That won't please Conte, will it? The fact that again, straight away like that, we give away a goal.
Yeah, but then at half-time, how much has he G'd them to get out there and be on the button from the get-go? You know, it's just one of those come out half asleep, couple of changes, people just feeling their way into the game, and bang, that happens. So I think it was just the nature of tonight's game, Rick. You know, you in the Premier League, you come out at half-time and there's a little bit more ringing in your ears of like, as soon as the whistle goes. Tonight, that might not be so much. You know, it's just that it's a training ground game, isn't it, really, to be honest? It's not much more than that. And it's all about Saturday and making sure at half-time. It might do us a favour and be a timely reminder, and just a few people coming back into Premier League football, you know, better be on our mettle as we come out from half-time now, because that's what happens if you switched off. They've come out a little bit more fired up. Just one of those ones, wasn't it? And then second half really was. It was literally training without the bibs, wasn't it? To be honest, and just one of those ones. So I don't put too much importance on it, or you know, worry. Celebrating if we'd have won it 4-1 or 5-1 or something, as much as if you lose a game like that 2-0 or something, you know, they're just those run out games, aren't they? And I'm sure that's what the players you know would be hearing. So yeah, one of them ones, Rick.
Just to Joe, I was going to tell Cracks, we play on Monday, don't come logging on Saturday.
Yeah, but it's a different time for me, isn't it?
Yeah, different time zone. He's 14 days in front. We've already kicked off it.
You know, Jason and I are like 112 years old. We still remember when it was just Saturdays you played on and the odd Wednesday, like, you know, Saturdays.
Crackers and me are remembering Millwall away on a Boxing Day with a 3-1 win, haven't we, mate?
Man,
down at the old Den.
Oh,
that was
man,
a Boxing Day and a half, wasn't it?
That was character building.
Wasn't that quite literally Boxing Day, wasn't it? That was quite literally Boxing Day.
Man, Boxing Day and was it Easter Sunday and a 3-3 that year?
Ouch. Yeah.
Two religious festivals spent with Millwall. That was nice fun.
Yeah, take your tin hat.
They're quite literally recovering the next day with a tin hat. Just finally, to sum up on Nice, we saw Alfie Devine come on for Dejan Kulusevski for those final 10 minutes. And also Will Lancashire got a couple of minutes. He's been in great form since his summer switch for Sheffield United. So a good opportunity for Conte to see some of those players up close and personal. But I think I say, guys, that was it. It was nice. It was Nice. It was 1-1. What we are going to do is we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. Taking into that break, you're going to hear from Antonio Conte, who gives you his reaction to that 1-1 draw against Nice as we build up to Brentford to come here on Last Word on Spurs. Next, we are addressing the elephant in the room, which of course is Antonio Conte's contract. Now, I don't really know where to begin with this, because again, it depends how reliable you feel the sources are around this situation. But I mean, you do always feel there's no smoke without fire. So Jace, let's start with you, and then we'll mean to go on. So Spurs are now reportedly, Spurs have reportedly resumed contract talks with Antonio Conte. They actually started back in October, and they were confident of agreeing a deal. But reported that has now slightly changed. And new sources close to key figures in the negotiations sound less optimistic than they did earlier in the season. How much do you read into that? How much are you concerned by that? Should we be concerned? What do you think?
It's going to sound strange, and people will say, "How can you take that view?" But I'm not in the least bit bothered. In the sense that since day one that he came, we had the tour. Remember, I mean, when did we play Burnley? Just he'd been there 4 months for that Burnley game.
Was it February? I've tried to erase that game.
Then it started. Will he be there at the end of next year? Will he be back? Will he do this? Will he do that? Then we get to the summer and we think things are going well in the first week of the transfer window, and then it starts. Oh, is he being backed? Will he stay there for the season? Will he see this out? Are they going to give him a contract? And so it feels to me like we've had the same conversations now for the last 47 weeks, and quite frankly, I'm bored of them. I'm just bored of them. Just, if he signs it, he does. If he doesn't, so be it. The whole argument about is he being backed? None of us know if he's being backed. We don't even know what backing actually means. I mean, if he turned round and came into the thing and said, I tell you what, Daniel, what I'm hoping to do is sell Son and Kane, do we want him to be backed? We have no idea what he's saying, do we? We don't know how many players he's asking for. We don't know if he's saying, people can say, is he being backed? If he's walked in today and said, Daniel, I want 400 million this summer, this January window, and I want to bring in 9, well, you can't possibly back him. So, all I know is does the club appear to be doing everything it can to push for success on the pitch and push to give him the maximum chance to bring success? And I don't mean top 4. I mean,
you mean
silverware.
silverware.
I genuinely mean silverware. No, it doesn't. And we all hope that the club somehow makes a trophy and some silverware as the number one priority for the coming season. You may not do it, even if you make it a priority, but that we feel that we have a real chance of winning silverware. Now, if that makes him bring in 1, 2, 3 players, so be it. But the whole general thing, it's why I hate transfer windows, Rick, because you get one story breaks, and then football, Alistair breaks it, and then Dan Fitzpatrick or Kilpatrick breaks it, and then Daily Hotspur jumps on it, and then Uncle Tom Cobley jumps on it, and then Garner Second jumps on it, and so my timeline sees about 15 different views of Conte having an argument when actually it's one bloody journalist that said it, and that's it. So that's why I hate the transfer window. It's why I just get bored of all this talk. Let's wait and see what happens with it. I hope he signs a new contract, Rick, and I hope that we do, as a football club, give him every possible chance to bring genuine success, not just top 4 success. But that's all I can say.
Frank, come over to you. We got some. Again, we've had some questions in here. Paddy says, do you think it's a case of the club not wanting to back Conte unless he commits, and Conte not wanting to sign the contract unless the club commit? King Huddle says, is he just playing hard to get? Now, we know that Spurs have an option to extend Conte's contract beyond June 2023. However, from what we understand, they ideally want to tie him down to a longer-term deal. Spurs can, of course, exercise that extension whenever they wish to do so, but you would imagine it would be senseless, really, to, again, trigger that option if Conte does not want to be here. So, Frank, where do you think the state of play is? And are you comfortable with the reports as they are now? Does it do us any favours to hear this rumbling in the background?
Well, it's amazing that so many of these Tottenham journalists, apparently who have the club's best interests at heart, just regurgitate the same stuff over and over again, which is a detriment and a negative to the club. No one knows. They're guessing. They're all guessing. You'd like to think that he's happy at Spurs. I mean, we are a club, in my opinion, in the ascendancy and have been for the last 5 or 6 years. However, echoing what Jason said, does it feel that the club are doing everything and going above and beyond to make us successful as a football club, to win trophies and actually challenge for a Premier League title? And it again, for the last God knows how many years, it always feels like we're 1 or 2 players or 3 players short. We're told we can't do big deals in January, even though Aymeric Laporte signed for City in January, Van Dijk signed for Liverpool, and Kunku's just gone to Chelsea, he's joining in the summer. So big deals can happen in January. we done very well last January. And I'm not saying you have to senselessly spend lots of money. The two we got in last January have had an amazing impact on the club. So if we can do more of the same, that's great. But I think the fact that it's a London club, there aren't many other big jobs available. Champions League clubs. We've got, a healthy squad. It's a good squad. I'm talking about quality levels. Is it a great squad? No. It still needs some surgery. But we've got the stadium, the facilities. That's, in my opinion, an attraction to a manager to work within those surroundings. That's just my opinion. But it's now or never for the board. And we keep reading and hearing as well that Daniel Levy is impressed by Conte like he hasn't been impressed before, like with any other managers. And this is now for him. He really wants to back him and offer him support. But there's no point in talking it. You have to do it. You have to show him. And it always feels that we never. When do we sign? And Rick, I don't want to sound like a broken record because we've had so many of these shows where we say it. When have we actually signed a genuine world-class superstar in his prime for this football club? And I still go back to
Jurgen Klinsmann, right?
Jurgen Klinsmann. I still go back to 1994. Jurgen Klinsmann, 1994, 28 years ago. And that's the last time we signed a world-class footballer with a world-class reputation who was a World Cup winner, an elite level football player who'd been doing it for years and at the top of his game as well, not on the wane or on a dip in his career. His trajectory had just been up and up and up, and he was still at a good level, world-class level.
Yeah.
And until we do that, until we start paying the premiums for players that want 400,000 a week or 350,000 a week, it just feels like we're never going to quite get there. And they've done so much good for this club, the owners. They've done some great things for the club. The infrastructure they've built, however they've built it, financed on debt. All good business people do that anyway. They don't spend their own personal money, but they've built this amazing infrastructure. The business ideas they've got, the stuff with the NFL, the events, it's amazing. But there is no point from a fan's perspective in doing all of that. I mean, the matchday experience is great, but the matchday experiences aren't going to be that great unless we win something or we suffer these losses to the Newcastles, the Liverpools, because the squad's 1 or 2 or 3 players short.
Yeah.
And I think this is now, in my opinion, last chance saloon for Levy, because if he mucks this up with Conte, I think that'll be it now for 90% of the fan base. I really do. So he's got a chance. It appears money's there. I mean, we're a revenue monster. We're told the stadium's going to be a game changer. But for me, it's now or never. And it just feels like, again, Poch is waiting in the wings. He turned down the Villa job.
Yeah, I'm going to come on to that. I mean,
there was always that dynamic, Rick, but I don't want that. I don't want to go back. I think we've got the manager. I think he hasn't got the players at the moment. You can't play out from the back. He's had a great World Cup, by the way. With Hugo Lloris, who can't kick football. I'm sorry, he can't. His technique is that of a 14.
You mean distribution has been always.
You can't play his style out the back with Davinson Sanchez, with Emerson Royale, with Tanganga, with these football players. You can't do it. And going back to just maybe I'm sort of drifting off subject here, but criticisms of style of play. Jason said this a while back. You cannot press and play hard the pitch with Harry Kane anymore because he hasn't got the legs. And Son, because he can't tackle. Son will never win a 50-50. The only one that can play that is Richarlison. You can't sit on the halfway line with Eric Dyer and Ben Davies playing centre-back and long leg. You can't do it. It's impossible. So what do you expect him to do? Until he's got his players, until it's his squad, you will see the brand of football he plays and the style of football. Until then, you have to reserve judgment. But he has to have the tools to be able to build with. And at the moment, he hasn't. There's too many flaws in the squad. There's too many players there that shouldn't be there. We've signed some fantastic players over the last 18 months. Don't get me wrong. Basuma will come good for us. Richarlison, Kulusevski, Bentancur, Højbjerg's up to his level this season. I don't mind Longley. I'd keep him in the squad.
We've got Perisic as well. I mean,
Perisic, fantastic.
From an assist
fantastic. But we need a world-class centre-back, a world-class right-winger. We need attacking reinforcements. We need a goalkeeper who can play out if we're going to play that brand of football. And it's that simple.
Could I just say on that, in the sense of, we do want world-class players, but I think it's almost impossible for Tottenham to get world-class now, genuine world-class now, because, if they're available, you're going to compete with somebody, and you're going to compete with Real Madrid, who can say, well, we'll give you league title winning and we'll give you Champions League winning, and Tottenham will give you hope to win a Carabao Cup. I think, when you look at how Liverpool did it, nobody said Virgil van Dijk was world-class when they signed him. Nobody said Andy Robertson was top class when they signed him. Nobody really went over the top with Fabinho when they signed him. I don't remember too many people even shouting Luis Diaz is world class when they signed him. And you can Darwin Núñez isn't world class, but they're, we need more of, as Franco says, we need more of the Kulusevski, Bentancur levels that you look at and think you're not elite right now, but you definitely have the capability to go to that next stage above it. And I think, even Mo Salah, when Liverpool bought him, I remember, and Mane, there were lots of people laughing at Liverpool paying 30 odd millions for Mane and Salah. They weren't seen as two world-class players that are going to transform everything and going to spearhead a Premier League campaign. They weren't. No. So, but you do need real proven top quality players. And like we said, Bissoumas, Kulusevskis, Bentancurs, we need those rather than looking at, with great respect, at the way we've done, say, with a Jed Spence, where we look at him, and a Papa Sarr, where we look at him and think, player for the future. They've got to come in and perform now, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Crack's sort of bringing into this.
Sorry, that is a fair point. I know what you mean by we're not going to sign Kylian Mbappe or Neymar or players like that. But those players who have got the potential to go up a level, Richarlison's one. When we signed him, we paid a premium for him. And Liverpool paid a massive premium for Van Dijk. That 75 million at the time was huge money for a centre-half. And those are the types of signings that I'm alluding to that could take the club up a level. Not, Conte wanted a centre-back in the summer. He got one on loan. He got Clement Longley on loan. Now, I guarantee if we'd gone to Inter Milan or Red Bull Leipzig and slapped down 85, 90 million for Guardiola or Bastoni, it would have turned their attention. It's all very well and good saying they're not for sale, they're not for sale. Southampton said that to Liverpool. Liverpool had to go back with 75 million. I think the original deal they tried to broker was like for 55 million. And it just feels like we'll never go and pay those premiums, even if at the time we feel like we're paying too much for a player. To get those types of deals over the line. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Listen, I've said this for years. I mean, I've always said Spurs, we always come out of a window and we always feel that we are 2 or 3 players short. What I will just very quickly say is on Bastoni, we know the club tried for Bastoni, and Bastoni himself said he wanted to stay at Inter. Hopefully, maybe revisit that option in the future. I mean, it looks like, again, there's links now to Pedro Porro, but there may be concerns if he's physically good enough for Conte's system. Do you want to... Sorry, Jason.
Well, the only thing, Rick, and you're right, he said he wanted to stay at Inter because he may just have thought, do you know what, I can do better than Tottenham in a year's time. But I bet if Manchester City or Chelsea had gone in for him, they would have got him.
Again, I mean, listen, I suppose it'll be interesting to see where this land sits, of course, when the window opens. But Cracks, you've been sitting there very patiently listening to Jason, Frank, they give their views on Conte's future. Really intrigued to know what you're thinking because, again, we hear reports that Spurs are unlikely to throw a huge amount of money around in January, which may frustrate Conte, who believes that he's only a few players away from what he needs. Apparently, Daniel Levy's been repeatedly clear with Conte in private that there's not a huge amount of money to spend. However, they're prepared to hand Conte, if reports are believed to be true, a 1 million pay rise to persuade him to sign a new contract. But they do seem to face this anxious wait to see essentially if he wants to reaffirm the fact they share his ambition. So where are you on it for you, Cracks? And does this help anybody, this coming out now just before the Premier League resumes? Does it help us at all in the camp? Because I don't think it does.
Well, nothing's come out from Conte. Nothing's come out from the club. This is all just post the World Cup where, certain websites and news agencies and subscription sites were getting plenty of clicks and visits with their hot takes on the World Cup. Lo and behold, that finishes and there seems to be a big row going on at Tottenham. And all of a sudden it's all gone running off the Spurs with this resumed contract impasse. And everybody, once again, is clicking onto their sites and giving them 50p an advert. And we're seeing this. So it's all just pissing in the wind, Rick, isn't it? Nobody knows. None of these websites know because Conte and his people are going to keep a close counsel on what's being said, and certainly Tottenham do. Daniel Levy does. I mean, it's a very, very tight-lipped ship. So, I just they might get on famously. They might really admire each other, and Conte
this is what
really
we hear.
loves.
I mean, we do hear they've got a good relationship. We hear they've got a good. But does this work for you, Cracks? I mean, the fact of where we are right now, that we're in a situation where Conte's contract essentially expires in 6 months' time. Does this work long term? I mean, the fact is he may be arguing it does work for him because when he approaches a transfer window, he's more inclined to get what he wants because he isn't tied down, and therefore it's more of the power to him when it comes to a transfer window. But does this work for the stability of signing players that maybe when they sign a 2, 3 year, 4 year contract, they don't quite know who their manager's going to be in 2, 3, 4 years? Or does it matter now because football is so short term?
Exactly. I said months ago that, let's presume that there's protracted negotiations going on between Conte and the club. And as Paddy pointed out earlier, and I've been saying this for ages, this could be, the club don't really want to offer too much money, because if they throw a big chunk of dough at Conte and he brings players in and goes, the next man comes in and goes, they're not my type of players. And vice versa. And, Conte's like, I don't really want to sign a contract because I'm not getting a big chunk of money. So someone somewhere has got to blink and trust and get a contract signed up. But Rick, it might also already be done and just not announced. Yeah. It could be that we have to wait until we go into a new financial year to announce it, and that it's activated, and to balance the books. Football clubs today, Rick, aren't just football clubs. They're just like they're huge businesses, and they come with huge business things going on, for want of a better phrase. There's commercial deals and this deal and that deal. They're not the local butcher done good that's bought the club and throws a few quid in, and people are playing for it's multi-million pound businesses now. And that comes with huge ramifications with contracts and when stuff's announced and the finances and the balancing of the books and everything. So it's one of those things. It passes me by. I'm like Jason. I just sort of see it and I go, yeah, but you just want somebody to visit your website and for some clicks and a bit of advertising. So until he's either announced that he's signed a contract or he says that's it, I've had enough, then I will, make a sort of more valued comment on it. Then really, at the moment, it's just pie in the sky. The whole lot of it, it really is.
And I think as well, there was a player in a World Cup that we got linked to 18 months ago, Amrabat, right? So it may well be one of these here in the city type websites thinks we'll revisit that, and they print a tiny story. Spurs are interested in Amrabat. You get 7 or 8 of the what I call the real clickbait sites, Goal 90 and all that rubbish. They all rehash that same story. And then when we don't sign Amrabat, you'll get a fan say, see, Conte wanted Amrabat, we never signed him. We never back a manager. When probably Conte's thought, I never asked to sign Amrabat. It's absolutely ridiculous. But people believe so much crap of stories that from journalists that, like I say, if you just work out any transfer window, we are probably linked with 80 players, 80, 90 players during a transfer window.
I can tell you it's more than that because the guy, our cousin that manages the socials, has done about 100 pictures already. We're not even, the window hasn't even opened yet.
We're linked with 80, 90 players at least. Every transfer window, we probably sign 2 or 3, which tells you 87 stories are complete and utter bollocks. And yet people sit there and believe all 90 stories. It's like, and sometimes you can just use a bit of common sense. You think, why are Spurs looking at this position when we've got 4 right backs or whatever? You just think, put the brain box in, have a look at it. We've got no homegrown slots available, so we're going to sign 15 more foreigners. How does that work out? Just sometimes, and then when we don't sign them, everyone then jumps seat. He never backed Conte. It's absolute rubbish, so much of it. So, Don't ask me about the transfer window.
Rick,
No, I wasn't going
all
to do
these
that.
comments down the bottom. I don't want to hear about oil, boy. Please.
Rick, I want to know who we're advancing our pawns on next.
Oh my God! When that
like
came
that
out
tweet
from,
earlier today,
was it
yeah.
Casio,
Advancing
Mercato?
negotiations, all these different ways of finding
yeah.
a new way, preparing to bid, are looking at, are getting close to.
Observing.
But today's one was magnificent, advancing their pawns.
Listen, it's the world we live in now. You've got to be different. So whoever's doing those stories, good luck to them. Good luck to them. Frank, can I just ask you, Frank? You mentioned about Pochettino earlier. We again, just to kind of finish up on the report we've had about Conte. There is a report out that says Spurs' hierarchy are not unanimous in backing Conte. Some feel they would prefer to move in another direction. One with Pochettino being back at the helm. Look, I've said my piece on Poch. I will say this: that for me personally, I loved Maurizio's time here. He gave me a real identity about what Tottenham were, the way we played our football. At times it was breathtaking. He got us into the top four consistently. We obviously, achieved the Champions League final. We got to quite a number of semi-finals and finals. We never quite got over the line. For me, I think Conte is a better manager, an all-round better manager. I would like to see the club back Antonio Conte accordingly. But I also want the manager to also be here. And I also feel that as a club, you do need to always have a sense of direction and where you're going. And my concern is, can you have a sense of direction and where you're going where you've got a guy in charge that's only got 6 months left to run on his contract? I'm not saying I want him out. I'm not saying I want a change. But can you understand any clamour for a return of Pochettino? Or, Frank, do you just feel that is in the past? That's where it should remain, in your opinion?
Well, it's the romance, obviously, because we did, regardless of the fact we didn't win a trophy, he made us believe again. We had an identity. It was entertaining. We played great football, barring the last year that he was there. It sort of fell apart. But up until the Champions League final, we were in a really good moment. So, yeah, of course, I can understand it. But I just feel that, you're right. In my personal opinion, I don't think that's the direction we should be taking. I think we should be backing Conte. I think you're right. He's a better manager. He's a winner. He's more, in my opinion, likely to extract more from the board. He'll be more demanding of the board because of his reputation and what he's done in the game. I just don't feel Pochettino was and is. I don't think he's that type of. I don't think it's in his nature to do that to the board. Obviously, in my opinion, he was let down. He wasn't backed enough during his time here. But then he also did sign some dross. Some of the players he brought in were dreadful. It was his decision to sign Davinson Sanchez for £42 million, which I'll never ever get my head around. And Tanguy Ndombele was his number one transfer target for that summer. So, you've got to balance it out. But no, I think that we should be back in Conte. I can understand why some fans want Poch back. I do understand it, but I don't personally. We didn't win away for 11 months, as someone's just highlighted. He elevated Harry Winks. He thought he was going to be. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because he did a lot. He did a lot of great for this club, but he wasn't perfect. He was far from perfect. So, but if Conte was to walk, I don't know where we would go next. I mean, if any of you have an opinion on that, if you've got a manager you'd like to come in, possibly, I don't know. If at the end of the season he calls it a day and that's it, where do we go from there?
When you look at the fast, Frank, we had before Conte with Nuno, and the way it was a real scattergun approach towards the end where, at one point, someone's going to have to forgive me, the guy that we're in with, the Portuguese guy, it's completely gone out of my brain. Before Nuno got the job, that allegedly we offered him the job, then we didn't offer him the job because Fonseca wasn't happy with the style of football. I mean, we saw what we went through in trying to get an appointment that summer, which ended with Nuno. I mean, Jace, just so you get the opportunity just to, have your thoughts and say your thoughts on Pochettino. Again, you have reports where he effectively ruled himself out of the running for the Villa job, where apparently Villa pushed for him very, very hard, as he still has his heart set on a return to Spurs. He believes that he's still got business, unfinished in North London. He's still got plenty of admirers within the club. He said, obviously, in the past that he would love to deliver that trophy, that title at Tottenham. How do you feel about these links back to Pochettino from this particular report? Do they excite you, or is this, again, something that should remain in the past, in your opinion, and not even be talked about whilst Conte's the manager at the club?
Well, I look at it from the other side in the sense that why would Pochettino want the Tottenham job? Because the reasons he left, talking about new furniture, if we haven't given the new furniture to Jose and we haven't given the new furniture to Conte, why are we going to suddenly give all the new furniture to him? So I think he'd have. First of all, I think if he came back without really significant investment, it would be hard for him to replicate what he did the first time round again. When he took that young group of Ali, Kane, Ericsson, and people like that, the group that he'd inherit, he'd have to completely build a group again. And I think to try and build a group like that again and take Tottenham back to the top 4 and challenge him for trophies, well, he's already done that job. So if he comes back, to me, if I'm going back there, I'd say, right, I took you 75, 80% of the way. The only way I want to come back is if you really give me the chance to go 100% the whole hog. And I'm not so sure he'd have that opportunity to do it. And then he thinks, well, if you're asking me to do exactly the same job as I've done last time, there's more chance of failing in that than succeeding in that. So I think it suits Poch to, I think he's very good with the media. It suits him to keep that Tottenham little ticket open and the fans pining for him. And don't get me wrong, I thoroughly love what Poch did the first time round. But I'd be astonished if Conte walks for the reasons that we suppose that he would walk, that would be enough for Pochettino to say, yep, that job's for me.
Yeah. And I also must just say, I mean, if you're arguing why would Conte walk as well, I mean, I would just say that, he's in one of the most biggest leagues in the world in the Premier League. And arguably, will he get a bigger job than Tottenham at this moment in the Premier League? I don't think Conte will, personally. I think, Tottenham as a club in terms of, and again, people might laugh at this, the training ground, the stadium, what he's working in terms of facilities are the best in Europe, arguably some of the best in the world. If his argument is that he's only a couple of players away, then give him those players. I think it's more than just a couple personally. I think you look at probably 3 or 4. But I think it'll be a real shame when we've got a real top-class manager there not to back him accordingly. So it sounds like Jason, as well as Frankie there, you're still very much on the Conte in train and believe that we should back him, Jace, right? Accordingly, Conte.
Yeah, we should do everything we possibly can. But like I say, if he depends what that level of backing he actually wants is, doesn't it? Whether it's actually possible to do it.
Yeah, fine. Cracks, we're going to come around to you, then we're going to squeeze in this Brentford preview. Cracks, just finally for you, you're still the same as you were before the break, still very much Conte on board and giving what he needs in order to achieve what we all want at Tottenham, which of course is finally delivering silverware. I mean, again, top 4 is great, but I've said to you for such a long time, you're not remembered for a top 4 finish. You're remembered for trophies. We've got the FA Cup to come against Portsmouth, a massive game for the club. I honestly say this all the time. The FA Cup should always be considered as one of the biggest games or games in our season. I want to see us take that very, very seriously. And I think what tells you everything about that game is I think that's a sellout at the moment, that Portsmouth game. You can't get a ticket. That tells you everything. It's just after Christmas. January, I think the 7th on the Saturday. Sellout there. That's what the FA Cup means to Spurs fans. We've got a rich heritage of that competition. It's time we start getting back to winning these competitions. Conte's still the man for you, Cracks.
Very much so, Rick. Yeah, it's talking about the FA Cup. That the game's changed. Football now is such a different beast to even 5 years ago. Never mind 10, 15, 20 years ago. And these cups, they don't mean as much to the people that run the clubs as they do the fans. It's as simple as that. This is the problem you've got now. Back in the day, your chairman and board would have been delighted with you winning a cup. But if you went round every board chairman and board member of any Premier League club and said to them, honestly, no fans are going to find out how you've answered this. Would you take 4th or the FA Cup? What do you think every one of those chairmen and boards will answer? It's as simple as that. These are balance sheets now. These are balance sheets. We're all about a day out at Wembley and seeing our club lift a cup. But the boards aren't. They're not really fans like they used to be. They are fans of the club. Don't get me wrong. They love their football, but they just see it in such a different way. So yeah, it's a tough one, Rick. With with what we want from the game and what they want from the game. It's day and night. It's completely different. But surely the club and Daniel and everybody else that makes decision at Spurs must have known that when they went for Conte, he was going to come with Conte-sized bills, wasn't he?
Yeah.
When he
You
signed,
you said this from day one,
yeah.
Cracks.
Bring in a Bentley, expect Bentley servicing prices, and Poch, lovely top line Mercedes, but you might go and get your car serviced for 1,500 quid. Go and take your Bentley to Bentley with 1,500 quid and see what you come out with. You might just get a new gear knob out of it, but you ain't getting a service. You might get a couple of tires out of it. So they must have known that there's going to have to be money spent with him because he is one of these elite managers. Now, if they bring him in and don't give him that sort of money, or haven't made it clear to him in a job description of, we'd like you to take this job, but you're not getting high-end elite players. We want you to create those along with a director of football, which so far they've not done a bad job of that with people like Kulusevski and Bentancur. They've taken players just below the radar, Richarlison. So
Romero.
Let's see, Romero, exactly. So let's see where we are in another couple of windows' time. This January, if we get another couple of Kulusevskis and Bentancurs that come in and, hit the ground running and look a lot better than they currently are at their club, we're going to be delighted. That
Absolutely, yeah.
You're
right. If we can replicate January's window, we'd be very happy, Cracks, wouldn't we? Let's be honest about it.
Yeah,
they can have the same impact.
Yeah. And listen to what you're being told. Conte has said we are another 4 or 5 windows away. So he's more or less already told us that the business plan is to keep bringing in Kulusevskis, Bentancurs, keep bringing them in. Richarlison's, bring them in. So I think this is the way we're going. We're going to have to learn some patience, but modern day football doesn't come with that, does it? There is no patience. It's everything now. So
the problem is we've been patient, and if you just bring in, you will need to accelerate it, because if you just bring in 2 and 2 and 2, then as you bring in 2, then Son and Kane diminish.
Yeah.
So you're just bobbing along, flatlining, aren't you?
Yeah,
flatlining.
You're just staying at par all the time when you need to, you need to get ahead of the curve.
My worry on the stories coming out is that it's leaked out, and again, we don't know the truth of it. But when people say there's not a lot of money there, that's my concern. Why? Because the stadium was sold to us, and if you go back to right at the planning stage with all the programme notes, this will be the game changer. That was the term he used. We will be able to compete. Now, I know Manchester City have ridiculous investment, for instance. If they wanted to go and sign Guardiola, they'll just get Nespresso or the Arabic branch of Nespresso to sponsor the Man City coffee machine for 150 million, and there we go. Oh, that breaks the FFP rules. Lovely jubbly. We can't all do that, but you look down the road at N5 and you think they're spending serious money. They've not been in the Champions League for 6 years. They've won nothing of note for 6 years.
Yep.
They're not selling players. I mean, they're giving Aubameyang away. They're giving Ozil away. They're writing off. They've sent Pepe, the 70-odd million player, out on loan. So it's not like they're bringing in massive investment, Arsenal, bringing in extra cash. But they're spending money, serious money.
Yep.
And they have done now for a couple of years. So we should be able to keep pace with how they're backing their manager in that respect.
Jason, I'll caveat that though with them being on the FFP watch list. And
maybe.
And if they don't balance the books by the end of this season, if they wasn't to make Champions League this season, then they would start to look at receiving some sort of restrictions on what they can and can't do. It's high risk strategy, and you sometimes wish that our club would just take that chance, and just push the boat out and just go that extra percentage on the spend. And like my dad says, the money in football doesn't matter, because come the end of the season, along comes the TV companies with another great big bucket load of it and just pours it into the void again. So, you know, it's a little bit of there is to do with our transfer strategy wouldn't go amiss, would it?
No, it wouldn't. And I think, like I say, I think we'll have to see how things pan out in terms of the window and what's to come. Jason will not be covering the January transfer, and you'll be delighted to hear. But what we are going to do is we are going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners on audio. Take you into that break. You are going to hear from Billy from the Besotted Bees podcast, and you're also going to hear from Uzi Majid, who is from Uzi Majid from the It's Raw podcast, who gives you his thoughts ahead of Brentford to come. Right, Frank, we're going to steer our attention towards you for this final part of the show. We're going to squeeze in this Brentford preview. You mentioned it earlier, Frank. Spurs' squad, they've played the third most highest amount of combined minutes at the World Cup of any Premier League side. Just read you out the top three. City, 4,624. Man United, 3,873. And Spurs sitting there in third, 3,687 minutes. And to add to that as well, Perisic has played the second highest amount of minutes at the World Cup of any Premier League player, 669, second only to Argentina's Emiliano Martinez. So, Frank, you said it earlier, this World Cup hasn't been kind to Tottenham in terms of the amount of minutes we've seen our Spurs players obviously contribute, and we're going to obviously be concerned about how they're going to come back for it, Frank. What's your overall thoughts ahead of Brentford now? Are we going to be able to...
Well, I think it's more the state of the squad, the fact that is Lloris going to be there, is Kane going to be there and available, Richarlison isn't there, Romero isn't there. Bentancur, even though he's suspended, wouldn't have been there anyway because of the groin injury. So it's not as though we've had the squad handed back to us in immaculate condition, which is a massive concern. It's not an easy game anyway, Brentford away. I'm not feeling confident. Depends again who can start. I'll be very intrigued. I'm intrigued at the moment to see what the starting 11 will be.
Yep.
I mean, Perisic was out on a run yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw his post on social media, but he was out road running yesterday. So I would like to think he'd be back.
Guy, I mean, he's credible, isn't it? I mean, he's literally.
I think he's getting fitter as the season is progressing, because obviously when he joined, he was injured, and Conte said that. So, in a nutshell, Rick, I'm not looking forward to the game just because I'm more looking forward to the Villa game, because we'll have more of in my opinion, a better squad to play that game with. And now, obviously, the rumours of virus outbreaks, Spence, Skip, will that spread to other players over the next 2 or 3 days? I mean, you go out and about now, everyone's coughing and spluttering. There's a massive sort of virus or flu going around. So you just never know with Spurs. It's never easy. So, no, I'm not really looking forward to the game. I think, it'll be very interesting to see that starting 11.
We're going to come back round to you, Frank, to get your prediction. Conte said on how he's going to deal with the players from the World Cup that you know very well after an important tournament like this, the World Cup, it's normal that the players come back in a different mood, in a different way. He went on to say Hugo lost the final. Instead, QT won the final for Harry. He missed a penalty. But I think he played a really good World Cup, as actually Frank alluded to earlier. For sure, they have to try and put this to one side, this experience. Every experience is very important in your life. But at the same time, you have to know now that we have to start to think about Tottenham and try to do our best. We are talking about important players for us. These are the players that can make a difference. In this type of situation, it's important to speak with the players to understand their mood, the way that the World Cup has affected them personally in a positive or a negative way, to try and overcome together these experiences. He finally went on to say, Conte, the coach has to be good to find the right balance in both cases. If you've played a great World Cup or if you've played a World Cup and something has happened that went wrong. He also confirmed earlier this week, Conte, that Ben Davies should be fit to face Brentford. He said Ben is okay and started to work with us last week. He has recovered. We do know that Richarlison underwent an MRI scan earlier in the week on that hamstring. So we will see, again, what that looks like. I think we saw reports, Ali Gold seemed to mention, I think we're looking at between, is it 5 to 8 weeks? Please correct if I'm wrong, guys. I think it's between 5 to 8 weeks for Richarlison. So again, I think once we have it confirmed by the club, we'll obviously see what that pans out like. But a big, big blow given how great he was for Brazil. And Bentancur, as things stands, Conte believes he should be fit for New Year's Day. But look, coming over to you, if I can, Cracks. Spurs and Brentford do get the Premier League back up and running. It's the early kickoff on Boxing Day after a 6-week hiatus, 12:30 p.m. UK time. And I think, I'd say Brentford come into this game, you would say, Cracks, on the back of what was a great win against Man City. Again, we've had a break in terms of the season, so I don't know how that affects momentum. But, I mean, Ivan Toney's had a really... has had a really interesting last 3 or 4 months, to put it in the most politest and mildest way. what kind of Brentford side are we going to face? Because I think if someone said to me, pick a game you most fear away from home, this would be up there. They're going to be really up for this Brentford. They're going to be looking forward, I think, to coming to face Tottenham. And I am concerned they may get us at the point and where we're not going to be 100% given the injuries that Frank mentioned there. What do you think?
But they could be the same, Rick. They might have a bit of illness going round, a disruption, players coming back, the momentum that they had from the City win gone because that was 6 weeks ago. So we don't know what they look like. Nobody knows what anything looks like in these first couple of games back because we've never had this mid-season break. It's completely unique. So I don't know. You kind of think maybe some of the continental players might not be so affected because this is something that they've grown up with, where you get that winter break, and that's something that they're quite used to. So it's very, very difficult. You know, if Brentford had beat City last weekend and then this weekend it was the game,
that's a good
you
point.
go, that's a factor. So it's going to be very, very odd. You're trying to nail blancmange to the wall here, aren't you, really, to try and predict how this game's going to go, because nobody knows what they look like coming back either. So there's no momentum, there's no form. You know, in the last month we've been this, and in the last month they've been that. In the last month it's just been nothing. It's just been the void. So very, very difficult. But I kind of think whatever team we put out, we do look difficult to beat. It's going to be a tricky game, but we are always difficult to beat. So let's see, Rick. It just, again, it's like transfer speculation, isn't it? Trying to speculate what's going to happen on Monday. I won't be there Saturday. It's, it is. It really is just piddling in the wind, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my last food analogy, by the way, everybody. And no,
just for Fiona's sake.
Nigella.
Just for Fiona's sake. Jace, you know, Brentford, they've shown that they're not, again, strange to cause an upset against the top six. I mean, they obviously beat City's local rivals 4-0 in United. They held Chelsea to a 0-0. So I don't think they're going to be fearing Spurs coming to town, Jace. I mean, I think they're going to be up for this one. How do you see this game panning out?
No, they won't be fearing it. But, you know, anyone keeps saying it's a tough place to go. There's plenty of other teams have gone there and beaten them, though. You know, I've seen Everton win there. Everton have won there. I mean, Arsenal went there and stuffed them earlier on in the season. And I think Man United have beaten them their last season and things like that. So they're not unbeatable at home. And, you know, we were absolutely shocking there last year and still got a point from it. So let's not make Brentford into being Real Madrid, for God's sake. But I think it will be a tough game just because of the unknown. But as Cracker says, they're in that same boat. Let's see what type of side we've got. I think if we get anything from it, will be a bonus. I think just get through that first game, much like the opening day of the season when you're away from home.
So you'd be happy with what? You'd be happy with 1-1, really? You'd be happy with 1-1?
Well, I think if we went there and got a result of some sort, then I wouldn't be too downhearted, and you get that first game done, particularly when it's away from home. No point away from home is a bad point. But let's see how the one thing I think, one of Lee's blue book stats, if you like, I think Brentford have never lost a Premier League game in which they've scored first.
It's an interesting one. I mean,
so the first goal will be
that's
important.
That's a fact, by the way. I remember it is up against City.
They've never lost a Premier League game in which they've scored first. So you know that tells you first goal of the game, huge. And I'm convinced that if Kane plays, there will be a penalty in the game.
No, just that. Does Kane take it, Jace?
What it will be in the game. So it may well be that their crowd are so much onto him, and Tony gets the penalty, and people wanted Tony to go to the World Cup because he can take a penalty, and he just rolls it calmly into the corner, and then it's that told you so. See, he should have gone and taken the second penalty type of thing. So I'm just convinced that if Kane's on the pitch, there will be a penalty at one end or the other.
Okay. Well, listen, Jace, let's get your prediction. Let's kick it off. What are you going to go for, Jace?
There'll be a penalty in the game.
And
there you go. That's my prediction. That's my prediction. That is my prediction. There'll be a penalty in the game.
Frankly, let's come around to you. I mean, so far, Brentford have taken up 12 points from home. They've come most, like I say, on the home soil this season. It's also worth knowing that Bournemouth actually shipped more goals in the Premier League than Brentford, 7 this campaign. So, listen, they're not strangers to conceding goals. Frank, can you give me a positive prediction? Can you find one?
I'll score draw, possibly. I just can't see us winning. If Kane starts, maybe we'll win. If the big, some of the big guns are back, I'm talking Lloris, Kane, Perisic, if they'll feature, I believe we can get a win, but I'm going to go for a score draw.
Okay. You do know your boys are down to do this game afterwards, right? You do know you're on this. You're meant to be coming on Boxing Day. You're sure you're looking forward to it. Yeah. Score draws. Cracks, let's come over to you. Look, I mean, I think Brentford are going to welcome back no fewer than 5 players for this game. Look, they may be tempted to set up with the same 11 as before. I think we'll address quickly another elephant in the room. Ivan Toney has been again charged over alleged breaches of the Football Association's betting rules. But I think it's important to say that as things stand, he is still available for selection for the time being. So, Cracks, what do you think? You got to give us a Cracks, you're doing this show. What are you going to go for? You got to give us a positive.
I'm going with a dull 0-0 draw.
Oh,
so we only have a 12-minute show to do on Boxing Day, and we can all go and watch Doctor No, the Bond film on that night. No, do you know what? I reckon we might nick it. I don't know why. We always look solid. Whoever plays for us, and I just got a feeling that we'll pull it round. Kane will be back. Kane will score.
Yeah. It would be great. It would be great for Harry.
I think we nick it 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, not to put the knockers on things. Spurs generally do seem to have good results over the festive period. So there we go. I have gone and said it. Look, I think it's important. Like I say, you take into account what we've got to come. You want to start fast. You really, really do, because the way the Premier League has been, having this break in between, I do concern myself the way you start a season as well. If you don't start fast for the second half of it, or should we say for this break in between, I do worry when we pick up momentum. We've got Villa coming to town, as Frank mentioned. Unai Emery will be up for that. He will be up for that. Villa are looking decent since he's come in through the door. I know they got beaten by Manchester United, obviously, in one of the games that they've played. But Villa has started turning a corner there, so it's not going to be easy. Joe just wants to fit in a transfer comment here. We'll let Joe bring that in. Joe says here, after the summer window and still not addressing the defence, nobody can tell me that this board are doing all they can. Second and third choices, targets won't cut it. Look, Joe, we shall have to see, of course, what comes in January. And like I say, it's coming fast, so we're going to know exactly where Spurs stand. But Jace, massive thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you back with us on Boxing Day. Thank you so much.
No problem, mate. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be good. Hopefully we're talking about a cracker of a win. You get that, cracker?
I was going to say, when we were talking earlier about that nobody's coming into it with any form, England have just won 3-0 in Pakistan. Well, England are banging in form. We've turned one win in 17 into 9 wins in 10. That's what you call form.
Listen, saving the best till last. Why not? We're going to end on some form of high. Frankie, thank you so much, mate. We're looking forward to having you back on for Boxing Day. Lovely to have you back on, mate. We've got to keep the faith, Frankie, right? Let's find a way. Got to find a way.
Yeah, I just hope that obviously we get through this period, get the players back, and in January back Conte. And hopefully that if we back him, those signings might replicate what Bentancur and Kulusevski done for us last January and allowed us to finish top 4.
Absolutely. And early, Frank, before January the 15th.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
I think people forget Kulusevski and Bentancur, they came in literally, the last few days of that January window. You do feel for everyone's mood around the camp. It'd be nice to have them in fairly early like we did with the summer, to be fair to them. But look, we will see what comes. Cracks, lovely to have you back on, mate. Thank you so much. Looking forward to having you back on Boxing Day. Hopefully talking about a Tottenham win. Fingers crossed, Cracks.
Yes, let's hope so. And just to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, and hope you have a lovely day spent with people you love. This time of year isn't for everybody, and if you're one of those, I hope you sort of get through that. And we'll be here Boxing Day as a little bit of company. And listen, it's one day. Come Boxing Day, football's back, and it just feels a bit normal, doesn't it? So but a Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to all the listeners and viewers.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Unless you're an Arsenal supporter that's trying to get on the chat line, in which case I hope you have a damn miserable one, a pointless Christmas, and a really crappy 2023, and everything you wish for collapses and burns.
And everything that comes with batteries has no batteries.
Yeah, exactly. You ain't got what you wanted for Christmas, you miserable people.
Well, I don't want to end it on that, but I will just reiterate what Frankie and Cracks and Jay said before they turned into evil people. Is that, honestly, guys, thank you so much for all of your incredible support throughout this year, last year, and all the years supporting Last Word on Spurs. I think we're all humbled by the audience size we get for Last Word on Spurs. So, on behalf of Jason, Cracks, Frankie from Lee, let's hope Lee's back well with us for Boxing Day as well. Please, guys, keep safe, keep well, have a very healthy, happy Christmas. We're back with you on Boxing Day. As always, keep the faith and come on, you Spurs.